Welcome to Matters Financial with Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thanks for stopping by. My piece over the weekend was quoting T.S. Eliot, The Wasteland, and the more I read of T.S. Eliot, I always liked him, the deeper he is, the more extraordinary. I was talking about April is the cruellest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land. And I said I'd been reading Ngugi wa Thiong'o's book, well, two books actually, Dreams in a Time of War. Let me give you that first, in which he writes, years later, when I read T.S. Eliot's line that April was the cruellest month, I would recall what happened to me one April day in 1954 in chilly Limuru. The day came back to me, the now of it, vividly. And then from there I jumped to the opening lines of the poem to which Ngugi is referring. April is the cruellest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land, and mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain. And I said to myself over the weekend, as we approach April, back of my mind I was thinking, will it be cruel and for whom? And I was basically saying that I was pretty bearish on Trump, bearish on oil, semi-bullish on the stock market, which has rebounded here strongly. And of course, another factor I should have taken in, which we'll get to momentarily, is President Zuma's rogue-like behavior. But let's touch on that in a minute. The other book I was reading of Ngugi's was The Wisdom of the Crow, which I haven't read previously. It's a wonderful book, and it's obviously about President Moi and his regime, and very interesting reading. The Dow closed lower for the 8th day, the longest losing streak since 2011. I like this photograph, sports and Florida sunset sky, photo of the day, photography, the photo hour. George Orwell, freedom is the freedom to say that 2 + 2 make 4. If that is granted, all else follows. A massive cyclone makes landfall in northeastern Australia. I like this photograph from The Guardian as zebras cross a road in Amboseli National Park. Photograph Goran Tomasevic of Reuters. Orwell again. We shall meet in the place where there is no darkness. And finally, quite frightening, listen to this. Power is in tearing human minds to pieces and putting them together again in new shapes of your own choosing. Indeed, my goodness. Political reflections, the Arab Spring and the Western Winter. Interesting connections made by this writer in Asia Times. There are many striking parallels between the Arab Spring that began in 2010 and the United Kingdom's Brexit referendum, the election of US President Trump, and the far-right resurgence across Europe. In each case, an old order fell, and progressive parties have been too weak to counter the emergence of authoritarian and xenophobic forms of governance. The growing discontent with the status quo that underlay the Arab uprisings of 2010-2011 had many causes, and the opposition took both progressive and conservative forms. Members of the middle class resented their loss of dignity at the hands of an unaccountable elite. Young people decried a future that looked especially bleak when compared to the expectations of their parents' generation. And Islamists stoked moral opposition to the loss of ethical values in society. These are all recurring themes in ongoing debates across the West, with its growing population of disaffected whites, displaced workers, frustrated young people. Over time, the economic liberalism has crowded out long-standing principles of equality and social solidarity. Vast wealth disparities have emerged, corrupting many Western country's politics. Isn't it very interesting, I think, in the connection? And if you look at things like unemployment rates in southern Europe and you compare them to the Middle East, they're almost equal. In the Arab world, the explosion of popular anger dislodged long-entrenched regimes, but the old autocrats had worked hard to prevent a credible opposition from ever being conceived. The 2010-2011 revolutions were leaderless and thus could not fill the resulting political void. Instead, armies, tribes, sectarian groups, and religious parties quickly came to the fore. The Middle East's new autocrats are consolidating power with divide-and-rule tactics that have polarized citizens along sectarian and identity lines. Owing to widespread feelings of personal insecurity, many citizens have opted for sect over society and for security over civil rights. In the West today, populist politicians with no realistic plans for actually building a better future are emulating Middle East autocrats. They win power by stoking fear of the other, refugees, Muslims or foreign terrorists, and promising to establish security through force. Once in power, they begin to consolidate their rule accordingly. Restoring optimism in both the Middle East and the West will depend on whether intellectuals, unions, progressive parties, and civil society groups can build a common political base and offer a shared vision for the future. At the very least, this new age of resistance and revolution has brought out into the open problems that were once left to fester in the dark. As a result, we now know that economic policies should be geared toward inclusion. Material consumption will have to be curtailed, he says. Look, I think that's exactly right. I think the connections he's drawing. But I'm very pessimistic. I think, the direction of travel continues in that direction. Although in Europe we've seen some promising signs, and that moment of epiphany of realizing that you can't operate in this manner, building walls and locking everybody out, because we're in a global world, we have to accommodate a lot of people. And if you just decide, oh no, I'm not accommodating anybody, you're basically shooting yourself in the head. Rare shot in the wild of a Rossiya 24 microphone pointing in the direction of Navalny. He's blacked out on state media. These are the what look spontaneous protests all over Russia, about which the Kremlin are quite unhappy, I do believe. Trump tweets Russia's story is a hoax. Jared Kushner is to speak to the Senate committee over his meeting with the Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak. Kushner will face questioning as part of a Senate Intelligence Committee investigation into contact between Trump aides and Russian operatives. Kushner, the president's son-in-law and senior advisor, will be the closest person to the president to be questioned on the alleged links to Russia during the 2016 campaign. My piece over the weekend, I said what is also clear is that for all Trump's distractions, incidental wiretaps, and an example of which is the US taps this Russian ambassador, Kislyak. He walks into Trump Tower, through the back door, by the way, for a meeting with the president's senior advisor and son-in-law, Jared Kushner, which Jared Kushner does not declare. Now, in that situation, obviously you're going to pick up a lot of conversation, and I think that's what's happened, and it's set to confirm a simply unprecedented level of non-linear coordination between Team Trump and a foreign power. The failure to repeal Obamacare speaks to a president who is out of his depth and not ready to get deep into the detail. And the New York Times' columnist Maureen Dowd described him thus: because you're sitting around in a bathrobe getting your information from wackadoodles on Fox News. Therefore, in my opinion, I said over the weekend, you've got to sell the dollar. Trump has injected political risk into the US equation in a way that we have not witnessed previously. Devin Nunes strikes me as a rabbit caught in the headlights. And then Cabot sent a tweet out when Marco Rubio tried to warn everyone that Trump didn't actually have a healthcare plan. You've got to listen to it. It's very prescient. China can deploy warplanes on artificial islands anytime. It's a think tank. China appears to have largely completed major construction of military infrastructure on artificial islands it has built in the South China Sea, and can now deploy combat planes and other military hardware there at any time, a US think tank said on Monday. So look for deployments in the near future, he said. It's quite concerning, and I think it's largely a fait accompli. Britain reviewing security at Parliament after deadly attack. France's Le Pen says lacks election funds, has no Russian backing the day after she went to see Mr. Putin. I like these. This is a great graph from Bloomberg. Carry trade returns in 2017 for those who keep an eye on that kind of thing. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 108.56, dollar index 99.23. I said so a little while ago. Japanese yen 110.67. The pound 125.85. The Australian dollar, which has been wobbling, 7600. India rupee 65.075, South Korean won 11.1158, the Rial 312.67, Egyptian pound 18.0513, and the big mover yesterday, which we're going to get to, dollar rand, last trading around touching 13. Take a look at this chart of the dollar index from Aurelia. I'm looking for a lower dollar, and that's on heightened political risk. Euro jumped past 109, the highest since November last year. It's now at 108.60. Germany's IFO Business Climate Index rose in March to its highest in almost 6 years. I think they've done enough. The European economy is picking up traction. Finally, Chinese dairy company that plunged 85% last week says it can't contact its executive director. He's probably gone with the cash. Gold at 1253.16, and this range is 1200 to 1260. Oil drops amid doubts on OPEC deal extension. Brent trades at widest premium to WTI because the WTI has gotten cheaper as the shale boys pump out more. I said on the weekend the price action is signalling a big risk of a further dramatic and asymmetric move to the downside. I said keep an eye on Caracas, Riyadh, Abuja, Luanda, and all the rest. I expect April to be very cruel for these capitals. Crude oil last trading at $48.09. Modi's alarming power grab is an article in Bloomberg View, which is talking about tax and the budget. It's saying he's chosen a path for India, which is far less liberal than earlier hoped. I don't know why anyone was hoping for a liberal Modi. And then the FT's reporting and calling it India's Minority Report. Biometric ID scans make Sky-Fi a reality. More than 1 billion have had their eyes and fingerprints scanned to access state benefits. India has the world's largest domestic biometric identification system, known as Aadhaar. Since 2010, the government has collected fingerprints and iris scans from more than 1 billion residents, and each has been assigned a 12-digit identification number. Scheme is championed by Nandan Nilekani, the billionaire co-founder of Infosys. Last week, the government issued a rule requiring an Aadhaar number for filing tax returns, ostensibly to improve tax compliance. It has also decided that all cell phone numbers must be linked to an Aadhaar number by 2018. What was once touted as an initiative to improve delivery of welfare suddenly now seems like the foundation of a surveillance state. And I admit the prospect of putting my own biometrics in the database leaves me uneasy. Should. Biometrics is being weaponized, says Sunil Abraham. He's right. The conversion of Aadhaar from a tool of citizen empowerment to a tool of state surveillance and citizen vulnerability, says Pratap Mehta. This is spooky in my view. India has of course been the best performing stock market this year. Take a look at this from David Inglis. Let's move on to Africa. Make no mistake, South Sudan's famine is not accidental, but by design, says Alan Boswell. It really is outrageous. that those folks are still sitting there. The leadership, I mean. Zuma batters South Africa's credibility by ordering Gordhan home. The rand plunged more than any other major currency after Zuma told Gordhan to return home a day after he departed for a week of meetings. The presidency gave no reason for calling off the trip, which the Treasury said had prior approval. And the ruling ANC said it hadn't received prior notice of the decision. Speculation that Gordhan is on the verge of being fired has swirled for months as he clashed with Zuma over the management of state companies and the National Tax Agency. While Gordhan has led efforts to keep spending in check and fend off the junk credit rating, Zuma wants to embark on radical economic transformation that he says will tackle racial inequality and widespread poverty. The rand weakened the most since November the 10th, dropping 3.1%, and it's dropped some more. If Gordhan or his deputy Jonas are fired, the sell-off will be vigorous. There will be a shudder in the market. I think you could see 14. He's always pushing the envelope, but this time it's going to be one push too far. South Africa lives dangerously as reckless Zuma orders Pravin home, says BD Live. Look at this, Pravin Gordhan is coming home and is obviously travelling in economy. Zapiro cartoon waiting for Gordhan. And now a lot will depend on who he proposes to put in that seat, because if it's somebody who's tainted, it's going to be highly problematical. South African all shares up 2.12% this year, dollar versus rand. Look at this 5-day chart, incredible move, and that's called a political risk right there. Go travel bug. I love the garden route, it never disappoints. Egyptian pound is at 1805. Nigeria's central bank will sell dollars to private individuals at 360 naira per dollar, it said in a tweet on Monday. Last week, Nigeria's overnight lending rate hit 100% before coming back down to 10% on Friday. Nigeria all shares down 5.17% this year. Bank of Ghana reduced its rate to 23.5% from 25.5%, widely expected, but it is the single biggest cut in borrowing costs since February 2010. The Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is up 12.61% this year. It is these electronic dollars, nicknamed Zolas, this is by Reuters, that are raising fears that Zimbabwe might be heading for its second financial collapse in a decade. It's a Ponzi scheme, a pyramid scheme, said former Finance Minister Tendai Biti. The implosion is coming. You can't defy economics. You can't defy fundamentals. It is these electronic dollars, nicknamed Zolas by economists, that are raising fears that Zimbabwe might be heading for its second financial collapse in a decade. Firm prices reflect that $1 in hard cash is equivalent to $1.30 in bond notes. In the banking system, a devaluation also appears underway. Assessing the true value of Zolas is difficult, but economists have revived a gauge used during the hyperinflation era, the old mutual implied rate. This compares the share price of the old mutual insurance firm in Harare and in London, where it has its primary listing. Toward the end of last year, around the time the bond note plan was announced, Harare shares began trading at a sizable premium. Old Mutual in Harare closed at $3.51 last week, compared with the sterling equivalent of $2.77 on the London Stock Exchange. So Zimbabweans need more dollars than people in London to buy the same shares. While a number of factors may be at play, this suggests their currency is worth less, even though its face value is officially at par to the dollar. The government is not in control, said University of Zimbabwe economics professor Tony Hawkins. Events are controlling them, and it will be a hard landing when it comes. And I wrote about this July last year. Countries like Zimbabwe feel like they are right at the edge that Hunter S. Thompson described thus. The edge. There is no honest way to explain it, because the only people who really know where it is are the ones who have gone over. Community leaders tell us that looting has forced many people to flee their homes in South Sudan. Coming here to Kenya, MPC retained the CBR at 10%. The meeting was held against a backdrop of a sharp increase in food prices due to the prevailing drought in some parts of the country, the continued depressed growth of private sector credit, and uncertainties in the global economy, the central bank said. Month on month, overall inflation rose to 9% from 7% the month before, almost entirely due to increases in food prices. Inflation for all other categories in the CPI basket was below 5%. Food inflation rose to 16.5% in February, from 12.5% in January because of the drought. So the foreign exchange market has remained stable, narrower current account deficit, mainly due to lower imports of petroleum products, machinery and transport equipment. Danone is buying the Kenyatas out of their Brookside, Tanzania milk business. I wrote a piece in February this year connecting the dots: food prices, the weather in Laikipia. And yesterday I saw this tweet: breaking, KDF airstrikes leave over 500 cows dead in Laikipia. Jubilee Insurance Company has reported full-year earnings per share was up 17.096%. Total income was up 13.854%. Profit before tax up 10.074%. Earnings per share up 17.096%. Net profit up 17.778%. They're paying a final dividend of 7 shillings 50 cents a share. That makes a total dividend payout of 8 shillings and 50 cents. What's going to get everyone excited is they're giving you a bonus share, 1 for every 10 held. Gross written premium up 12%, group life business up 59%, that was strong. Individual life business up 36%. Insurance result up 15%. These were strong results, and apparently they're going to expand into the DRC Congo after this year. Barclays Kenya launched a gold-based ETF. I said the following to John Anglin Beer that they're pushing it an open door by launching a gold-based ETF. There's clearly demand for gold here because people see it as a store of value. It would also serve as an indicator of demand for more complex and innovative products in Kenya. Last week, after more than a week's delay, the government launched Emakiba, platform through which retail investors can buy government bonds via their mobile phones for as little as $29. The initial product is a 3-year infrastructure bond that is due to start trading on April 10. I said it makes sense to add complexity to the stock exchange. I think that with the ETF, they're testing the water to see what kind of appetite there is for this kind of thing, derivatives and so forth. I&M Holdings reported full-year earnings per share rose 8.411%. Loans and advances to customers grew 5.36%. Profit before tax was up 4.283%. Profit after tax up 8.619%. Earnings per share up 8.411%. Dividend unchanged. I think on a P of 5 it's inexpensive. I prefer Standard Chartered to outperform, and then looking at something like Barclays Kenya if we get another sell-off. Kenya shilling 102.81. As I said, the shilling will confound the naysayers through 2017. Nairobi all shares down 1.44% this year. There's been a remarkable recovery in March. NSE 20 is down 2.76% this year. Standard Chartered has been the bull outlier at the NSE and is up 16.93% in 2017. KCB has rallied 27.77% in March, admittedly from a very oversold position. Nation Media has rallied a startling 18.82% in March. Safaricom closed at a 6.5-week high of 1870 and it's pushing on today. Fahari Real Estate Fund plans to raise 9 billion shillings in a cash call. The share price is down 6.43% so far this year. TransCentury confirmed that Kuramo Capital Management has acquired 24.99% of the shares in the company. Kenyan firms freeze new hiring, suspend pay rises, according to Business Daily. I wrote a piece on the 20th of March about policy making agility is key for a thriving economy. I quoted Lao Tzu, men are born soft and supple, dead they are stiff and hard. Plants are born tender and pliant, dead they are brittle and dry. Thus whoever is stiff and inflexible is a disciple of death. Whoever is soft and yielding is a disciple of life. The hard and the stiff will be broken, the soft and the supple will prevail. Let me leave it at that.